Welcome back to the REI Agent. My guest today is Chris Waters, founder and broker of Waters International Realty, one of Inc.'s 5,000's fastest growing companies with operations across 4 Texas cities. What makes Chris unique is that despite scaling to a multiple city brokerage, he has stayed actively involved in deals and the day-to-day business rather than retreating to the boardroom. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Chris. So what got you started? What got you into this crazy world of real estate?
I went to college and got a degree in finance, and I was going on job interviews at JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs. And, I was sitting in these interviews, as a 21-year-old, and it was this very weird feeling I had sitting across from these people. And I don't want this, I don't know, it'll probably come off very arrogant, but I guess truthfully, I did have a lot of ego at 21 years old. I wasn't very humble or very coachable at that point, but I was going on these interviews and I just felt like the people that were interviewing me should be working for me. It was like the weirdest feeling. I had a lot of little entrepreneurial gigs pre-college.
Cool.
I paid my way through college mowing lawns. And, when I was in high school, I worked for Circuit City, if anybody remembers Circuit City.
Yep.
And I got 60% off car audio equipment. And I had this great idea. I'd use my discount and buy the stuff. And then at the time, this is 1998, eBay.com had just launched.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to go put all this stuff on eBay.com for sale and arbitrage, And I ended up getting fired from that job because I got pulled into this room because they thought I had some kind of Ponzi scheme or something. They were like, you're making $8 an hour. How are you buying tens of thousands of dollars in car audio equipment as a 16-year-old on $8 an hour? My purchases of car audio equipment was 10x weekly what my car audio stuff was. And so,
way. That's funny.
After I got terminated, because first off, they didn't have that in the policy and procedures manual. There was nothing in there that said you couldn't resell stuff on eBay. So anyways, I got fired. They sent out a notice to every employee at Circuit City across the United States that you can't do that. And then I had an instance where my mom put out flyers for me. She came home one day with these door hangers for Chris's lawn service, and I never cut a lawn in my life. And so her and my brother start passing out these door hangers, and my mom's like, "Hey, go get to work." And she's like, "You want all these things? Go make money." And I was like, "Oh shit, okay." And so, anyways, I started mowing lawns, and I was kind of just fascinated with how you literally put a door hanger on someone's door and they call you. I don't know the psychology of that. I don't know. It was really interesting. And so, anyways, I had these things happen, in high school and college. And so when I was going through college, one of my lawn mowing customers, he was one of my most pain in the ass customers, was in real estate, and he had a team, and he, recruited me to go join his team, and they started giving me leads, and I started figuring out, what to say on the phone, how to meet strangers, get them committed to signing with you. And, I started helping people buy and sell homes. But, one of the reasons I got the finance degree in college was I was like, oh man, I'm going to be a big real estate investor and developer and all these things. And but I didn't understand how do you get deals? How do you get the money for deals? And so I was like, I thought getting started as an agent, I would learn, the ins and outs. And I did. I learned a lot from, representing folks. And then I started figuring out how to find investment deals and, all that stuff. And so anyways, that's kind of how the, things got kicked off.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, I'd love to get into the investing piece as well, since that is definitely a part of our show that we love. But yeah, well, I mean, did you were you still cutting grass there for a while then, while you kind of got the business started, or did you just kind of jump in?
No, I had all this equipment, and, I had truck trailers, all this stuff. And I had a couple guys that worked for me in college. And, I remember my senior year of college, my phone was blowing up during a final exam. And I check my phone when I get out of class, and I have 20 missed calls and multiple voicemails from a sheriff, yelling and screaming, "Your car's being impounded. Call right now. like, I'm going to take your guy to jail, like all this stuff. It scared the shit out of me. And so like, I was graduating college and I knew that wasn't what I was going to do forever. And so I actually sold the business to another local company. I gave them all my accounts and they bought all my equipment. And so I had a little bit of money from doing that. And that's how I, kind of survived that first, 12 months.
And yeah, so that is that kind of what it took to kind of get up and running. That, I mean, that's the beauty of starting off when you're young. Like, you don't have wife and kids or whatever to have to, or you haven't established a lifestyle that you need to maintain really. So like, I mean, you can live at home and like all that stuff is the beauty of. I mean, I wrote a book about like kind of how you could start as a young motivated person like yourself. To get into investing and to get into sales and your case in point, like the entrepreneurial type person that can see that opportunity and what a perfect way to start slow. I'm curious what investment, how fast you got into that investment side as well, and was that something that you were just focused on from day one, pretty much when you were in the sales business?
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't understand all the acquisition strategies and, the various things you can do on the investment side for the first several years as an agent. I studied, this was 2008 and 9. Mm-hmm. And so there were foreclosures at the yin yang, short sales at the yin yang.
Yeah.
And, I didn't have a lot of money and, to your point, I didn't need a lot of money to live. I did start selling a lot of houses pretty fast.
Okay.
I'm trying to think about when I started, connect. So like I remember going to the courthouse when they do like the foreclosure auctions.
Yeah.
And so like I remember going to the courthouse and it was crazy. There's like 20, 30 buyers there. You got to pay with a cashier's check. And I was like, man, I don't have a cashier's check. I can't bring, $500,000. But I started kind of, figuring out like where the motivated sellers are and like how to find them.
Yeah.
And, kind of just by, accident figured out, where to find all the top sellers that are motivated and, need to sell fast. But I probably, let's see, I got to a point where I started making really good money, as an agent. And, I wrote a book, memoir about when in 2010, I started a team. And in those 3 subsequent years, I got the team to over 300 closings in a year. And we netted over $1 million after all expenses.
Awesome.
And so, wrote kind of a book kind of out, basically the story of like what happened between 2010, 2013. I published it like 7-8 years ago. It's on Amazon. But like going through that journey of, what is it? That was 16 years ago when I started the team.
Yeah.
Along the path, you start learning about wholesaling and, acquisition, disposition, just, as you, fall backwards into, for example, I would have a listing and somebody would submit a offer from some wholesaling company. And I didn't even understand it was a wholesaling company.
Yeah.
And, and then I, started, I remember going online and buying some training courses around finding wholesale deals. I'd say that's been probably one of the greatest shortcuts to success for me is finding great coaches and mentors to eliminate, years and years of time testing and just, copying and pasting what they tell me to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, it is, if you can find a good mentor when you get into the business, I mean, that is such a key thing. I think for a lot of agents that are interested in getting involved in investing, I mean, like just kind of doing their primary residency as like their first rental, at least, that's a super easy way of jumping in there too. From the team, did that evolve into the brokerage then, or how did that go?
So, kind of funny story. In 2009, I had this loan officer I was sending all these deals to. And he had grown up, like his dad kind of built this empire of like bars, restaurants, all this stuff. And as the market's crashing, he was like, man, we should invest in a bar and restaurant. He's like, alcohol sales go up a lot during market declines. And I was a 24-year-old kid, and I had saved quite a bit of money at that point. I had saved a couple $100,000, and I, was stupid, put literally all my money in that business. And 9 months later, there were chains on the door and like stickers all over the door saying you're being evicted. And I was broke as a joke. And so in 2010, shortly after the bar and restaurant closed, I was sleeping on my girlfriend's red IKEA couch at the time. I had too much pride to go back and live with my mom or my dad, and I had sold my house because I took the equity out of it to like kind of get started. I bought a house in college, so anyways, I broke as a joke, and I needed to make money as quickly as possible. And I kept hitting a lot of constraints being with various brokerages around like what I could do, what I couldn't do, compliance, like all these various things. And also, of course, they take a chunk of your commission. And so I had closed enough deals, and I had a college degree, so I was able to become a broker. And so I started a brokerage on a red IKEA couch in the summer of 2010. And I had gotten really good with lead generation. And so I started teaching other agents how to, not how to lead generate, but I gave them the leads, and I started teaching them how to convert them. And I'd like to tell you it was a success, but it was a complete failure first year. I completely bombed. I recruited 20 people, and 18 of them sold 18 houses. And me and one other guy sold 80 of the 98 homes. So I burned it down in 2011 and kind of rebuilt it from zero. But got it the next iteration. I got it up fast. Got it up to 325 closings. We only had, I think, 7 or 8 people on the team, like agents. So each agent was, cranking out a lot of deals, and I was out of production. I was just running the team. And 2014 and beyond, just started expanding in other cities, started, partnering with other agents to help them grow to doing, 300-400 deals. And then
what was the difference between the first round and the second round? What would you attribute to your success the second round that you did differently?
So, so many things. One is not all leads are created equal. I was giving low intent leads to the agents, and I just didn't know any better. Like the real estate industry, like drowns you in like all these places you can go and buy leads. And most companies that sell leads, like, because agents don't know any better, they go and buy the cheapest leads and try to get the most quantity of leads. And what I have found is the complete opposite is actually what's the most effective.
Yeah.
So it's, what has the highest return on investment, the fastest conversion rate, like the fastest lead to appointment, face-to-face conversion, all that stuff is the complete opposite of what the industry sells. And so that was the first thing to figure out, is like how to give the best opportunities to the people on the team, so they weren't, getting demoralized and frustrated with calling people that didn't answer the phone or said they were just browsing. Same on the acquisition or listing side, like getting the leads that actually are going to convert really fast, like in less than 90 days, not a year or 2 years. So that was the first one, first aha. The second thing was, hiring the right people. I read this book called The Rare Find. And what I took away from that book, I started implementing in the selection process. And that really was like a game changer in finding the right people. And then the third thing was, having a really solid training roadmap for agents. Like I remember there were so many different iterations of like how I was training agents. Like one time it was like legit, like, felt like a professor, at the front of the class teaching. And what I actually found was more effective is like just getting people to take action. And how, I started defining success was what was the average number of days it took to get an agent to get a deal under contract. And so when we kind of got that to like 23 to 24 days, like we were really humming, because agents got wins really fast. They started gaining confidence, started taking more action, and then churn reduced. And so those are probably like the 3 key things I figured out between the first iteration and the second iteration.
Okay, because you were saying earlier it was like 2010 to 2013 was that process, and the 2010 to 2011 was a kind of like a stop and restart. So it was really only 2 years to get that.
Yeah.
that go in the second round. So that's really interesting. So you mentioned that you're in 4 cities. So you've expanded into 4 Texas cities while staying actively involved in deals. How do you manage that, and why is staying hands-on important to you?
Well, I'm not like in the trenches of the real estate brokerage. I'm not working with buyers and sellers anymore. I'm just, I've got a leadership team in place that runs a business. I've got 4 corporate stores, plus we got licensed as a franchisor. And so I have franchisees across the US and Canada.
Okay.
And so, the thing that I'm doing personally and the deals like I'm getting involved in are like personal investment deals. Like, for example, I bought a 1,200 acre ranch, and the back 500 acres was landlocked, and I got it way under market value because it was landlocked. And so I was able to acquire an adjacent tract, so it was no longer landlocked. And so that was a deal I bought for like $6.5 million, and I sold it for $14.5 million. I'm doing another deal right now. It's a deal on Lake Travis, and I think the person that owned it previously I don't know, the project required for the development to happen. It's like literally on the water, 1,500 feet of linear water frontage, and the access point onto that track of land on the water, it only had a 50-foot access road, but it was a huge tract of land, but only 50 feet of access from the road. And to turn it into a development, you needed a larger access. Like, think about like a neighborhood entrance, right? Like you need like a wide road, plus you need utilities. And so, I bought that deal for $2 million, and then I bought the neighboring tract up at the front so that I could I could solve the restriction that the city had, which was you have to have a minimum number of feet along the main road to have people for ingress and egress.
Yeah.
And I paid $30,000 for that lot, and now I'm selling the deal for $7.5 million. And then I've got I've done everything. Like I've done the Burr method. I've acquired 100 plus scattered single family homes. I've flipped hundreds of houses. Kind of done it all, and those are the things I'm getting my hands in.
Okay. Yeah, that's fascinating. I think that is one of the key fundamental things about real estate is like you create value by solving problems, and the examples you just gave are huge scales of that. I think that was one of the first. I helped an investor. He was a friend, and he bought his first house. And he had the mindset. He's been one of my best repeat clients because he buys and sells all the time. But the house had an attached garage, but there's no entrance into the house from the garage, and he had to go outside around, and it didn't make any sense. And he simply put in a door and some stairs. He had to cut through brick. It wasn't easy, but he solved the problem, and he realized some profit. A lot attributed to that, and I think that's a really simple, small example, but you solve problems, and the market rewards you for it. So yeah, that's fascinating. Man, you've done a lot. So you must be high level managing if you're doing that many flips, or is that just like from years of?
Well, I was, I think the natural progression for most people is like, it's crazy. Like I'm 42. I started doing this when I was 21 years old. So I think I'm following the natural progression of probably most people. I started off, buying and remodeling and flipping. And, you just get to a point where like, both your net worth and your, what you're looking for from a financial perspective gets to a point where like, making $20,000 or $30,000 or $40,000 on a house doesn't really move the needle. Yeah. I mean, when I was 25, 26, 27, 30 years old, like, yeah, sure. But, I had a full-time superintendent, property manager, like the whole team. Right. And, we were over the course of, 5, 6, 7 years, we did hundreds of remodel and flips. But yeah, it gets to a point where the juice isn't worth the squeeze. I mean, now when I do a deal, like I'm looking like at like, how do I make in profit on one deal, $5 million, $10 million, I'm looking to make 7 to 8 figures minimum per deal. I have an investment team that is doing acquisition and disposition But my primary, and on the brokerage side, we primarily represent buyers and sellers, and we're looking to help them get the best outcome possible. Selling homes for the most amount of money in the shortest period of time. And our investment team is really just there because we just, as a function of like the pure volume we do. My office gets a call like a couple times a week with someone that's like, literally the number of times this happened to me is mind blowing. People will call me literally like on a Thursday, and their house is scheduled to be foreclosed on the next Tuesday. And they have like, all this equity in the house. And, it's like, and so, I've got a lot of little, competitive advantages. So we can typically pay a really good price. We're not buying it like pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is I don't even have to remodel and flip anymore. Like my buyer database is so big, and I have some buyers that literally pay like near retail price. Like they're institutions, hedge funds, like they're individuals that just want to have a house like in a specific neighborhood, because they can drive by it and they have like a great job making good money. And so like, it's kind of a win-win for us. We're helping clients get more money. We collect more on commission because we can double in the transaction because we have the buyer and the seller. And so it's just, and so we can offer people more than most wholesalers. We're getting the sellers more money, and it's just an all around win-win.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. You mentioned some about that book you read about recruiting agents. I'm curious what your philosophy on recruiting and retaining agents in a market where brokerages are increasingly commoditized.
There's, call it 3 different brokerage business models. There's the brokerage that's got the big national brand. And if you're a new agent, you're going to be lured in there because you think that brand is going to help you. You'll quickly find out it really doesn't do that much for you. But some of them have really great training programs. And so like the one I could commend and give the most props to is KW. I think they're the best at training new agents. And MAPS Coaching is a phenomenal organization within Keller Williams. The second type of brokerage model is the, basically the agent keeps all the commission or most of it. And there's this like multi-level marketing scheme to it. And, I think that those are good business models, like Real and EXP. I think those are great business models. I think people need to understand, like, either if you're going to make a lot of money at the recruiting front, it like needs to become your full-time job. Like the people I know that are crushing it at the tops of those pyramids are, they're crushing it at recruiting all day, every day. They're on stage at events all over the US. That's all they do. So I think you got to decide who you want to be, but those are great companies too. But, it's just, you're holding your license there for compliance reasons if you're not, getting money on the back end for recruiting. And then, the third brokerage is there's brokerages out there that do generate leads and have these, referral mechanisms for agents. So, those are ultimately the 3 models. And what's kind of interesting about, what we have created, like in my company, is it's actually not any one of those models. We've got more of an enterprise model. And what I mean by that is like, we know how to get the leads. I have an inside sales team that works the leads. They book the appointment on the agents' calendars. Like my agents just show up. They prepare for the appointment. They show up, get the contract signed. And then once the contract is signed, they're turning it over to an account manager. That's like a transaction coordinator and a listing manager that do a lot of the back end functions and work side by side with the agent. And then we have a field team doing courier, photographer, stager, and all that. And so we have all these, robust departments with the agent kind of at the center of, they're steering the ship a little bit. And so it's a very different business model. Like what we've created would be it's basically near impossible for an agent or for a brokerage to replicate.
Mm. Yeah, I've often, said that when you're considering a brokerage, you need to really consider where you're going to get to be successful. Like, how are you going to achieve success in the business? Because if you're just looking at like commission splits, for example, it doesn't matter if you have 100%, you have all the commission if you don't sell anything. you have to be trained. You have to have a way of actually getting good at the business, and that was one of the things I definitely focused on when I first joined. But that's really interesting. Your company has made the Inc. 5,000 fastest growing metric. What is one of the metrics or principles that drove the growth that most brokerages overlook?
Well, like I said, like most brokerages can't really emulate what we're doing. So we're a brokerage, but it's just the business model is very different. So, like our company is responsible for generating the leads. Our company is responsible for booking the appointments. Our company is responsible for training, coaching, and helping the agents succeed. We have our field team, career photographers, stagers, they're all on staff, transaction coordinator on staff, the listing side marketing team. Like all this stuff is internal. And so it's hard to, put your finger on one thing. Like it's ultimately, like if you boil it down to one thing, I guess it boils down to like execution. Like we help the agents predictably execute at a really high level. And so like for the last 10 to 15 years, like my worst performing salesperson is selling at least 50 to 60 homes a year. Like my worst performing one. Like my best ones are selling 110 to 120 homes in a year. So again, you boil it down to one word, it's execution. This isn't, but I'm not playing the game of like, go have, tens of thousands of agents. Like any one of my teams is outselling a typical brokerage of, I'll have 7-8 agents outsell a brokerage with like 300 agents or more, So I call it the enterprise model. What we're doing, we're a brokerage, but it's leveraging a really different model. Gary Keller wrote a book called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and it's like the MREA model, but like times 10x. Like the org chart is much bigger. There's a lot more like team leaders over, like I have a head of marketing, head of sales, head of operations, head of inside sales. So there's robust departments, and they're all there just to support the agents to help them execute.
Yeah, well, that's fascinating. It does sound very different than a lot of other companies out there. That's really fascinating. And you said you now have franchised that so that people are opening across the country, not just in Texas. You have 4 of your own in Texas, and is that?
So Austin, DFW, San Antonio, Clean Temple, Waco. Those are like my call it corporate teams. Yep. And then I have franchise partners in 2 in California, Indianapolis, 1 in Toronto, Canada, 1 in South. I have another one in South. I have 2 other franchisees in Texas. I had somebody else. It wasn't actually through the franchise. We just did an equity partnership deal, and I helped them launch. And they actually bought me out. It got so big so fast. They were just like, "Here's a check, go away." I was like, "Cool."
Yeah. I mean, Chris, I feel like we have a million avenues we could go down. There's a lot more of the investing side to unpack too. But I do want to ask about your golden nuggets, because you mentioned some of them before we got on air, and I think there's lots of teas out there as well. So can you share some golden nuggets with the listeners?
Yeah. Well, like I said, like my biggest, one of the biggest epiphanies I had early in my career is like our industry brainwashes us with all of these places to buy leads. And what I have found is the most motivated sellers, the ones that take action quickly, the ones that require the least amount of time to follow up with, are the people going through major life events. So for example, they inherited a home, or they're going through a divorce, or maybe they're facing foreclosure. They got behind on payments and they got served a notice, like these are some of the highest intent, fastest converting, people that you can find. And what's interesting about it is those specific sellers, they actually are a very large percentage of every homeowner that goes to sell each month. So like the move up seller, like somebody selling their house and needs to turn in and buy, like that's a very tiny percentage of the total number of, sellers out there. So what I learned is most people are selling because of major life events. And the people going through these life events, it's crazy that this is a reality in the US. But when you go through these life events, it's all recorded a public record. So if you inherit a house, you go through something called probate, and there's an executor to the estate responsible for selling the house. And that's all public record. Like you look at the application for probate, the executor's name and an address where you can reach the executor is like literally on the application for probate. and it's filed a public record. When people go through a divorce, literally their information is right there to pull up. And if someone's facing potential foreclosure, all public record. The other interesting thing about foreclosure is, so earlier in my career, and I told you about this, I went to the courthouse and looked at, what happens at the courthouse when they auction stuff off. And I remember going, and like a vast majority of the properties didn't sell, and they didn't even go up for auction, but they were on the list. And so as I tracked the properties, what I realized is a lot of people, they get the foreclosure notice, but they work a deal out with the bank to get it extended so they can get the house sold. But if you get that list of foreclosures, a lot of them, in the next subsequent month or two are going to be hiring an agent. Like those are the people you want to be targeting. So you can go to abouttosell.com, and the team there will scrape your county courthouse, like literally the county courthouse records. They scrape them, and they pull the records in, and then they enrich the contact record details so that you can send them cold email and direct mail. And that's my advice. I would email them and I would direct mail them. You can use yellowletters.com or thanks.io. And I recommend handwritten letters. I've tested everything, postcards, everything. I think postcards work too, but if you want to send one thing, you do a handwritten letter. If you want to send if you do postcards, you got to send a bunch of them.
Handwritten letter, the type that has the machine that handwrites them, or actually,
if you go to so thanks.io,
sure.
That's really who we use, and they have like a printer that uses a ballpoint pen to write.
Nobody could read my handwriting anyway, so that.
So high intent seller leads is super impactful. Another data source is like expireds and withdrawals. But those are there's all these. I like my investment team is like some of these younger guys are coming up and telling me about these websites and all this stuff. And they're like, oh, these are pre-probate. And I'm like, dude, I don't want pre-probate. Like I only want to send them a letter right before they're ready to transact. Right. If you send the letter too far in advance, well, then it's not you're not sending it in a timely fashion. So anyways, there's a lot of tech companies that I've gotten on the phone that are selling leads. And I find out for example, recently this one tech company was like, we'll get you pre-probate leads or whatever. And I'm like, are you scraping obituaries or something? Like, what are you doing? They're like, no, we look at the tax records, and when it goes from 2 people to 1 person, and there's an over 65 designation, we assume that someone passed away. And I'm like, well, when that happens, that means they went through the title process of getting their significant other or whoever off of the title record, and that means they're probably going to keep the house. And so you're too late to the game if that's how you're doing it. Right. And so anyways, a lot of these people are super frustrating to me because they're selling a bunch of BS, and it's like, dude, the best source is the public record courthouse. There's nothing better.
Yeah, that guys is a golden nugget. That was good. That was really good, Chris. Thank you. I don't know if you can top that, but I do want to know another golden nugget.
So, I mentioned earlier about the second aha I had about building a team was how to train the agents to get them to do deals as quickly as possible. And when I wrote this book 7-8 years ago, I had a lot of people over the years, email me and say hey man, I'm stuck in the early climb. I can't get past 150 deals per year. I can't get past it. And what I realized is I should have put a chapter in the book about how important it is to do ride-alongs and to listen to call recordings, because it's something we were actively doing. Is we would regularly do ride-alongs with the agents on actual appointments, so we knew what they were saying face-to-face with somebody, and we listened to call recordings every morning to make sure they were saying the right thing to book appointments. You can go spend all this money on leads, but conversion dies or thrives at 2 points: on the phone and face to face. And if you suck at both of those things, you just blew a bunch of money on leads. And so anyways, I had a lot of people send in the book, tell me they were getting stuck. And what I learned is the team owner was wearing a lot of different hats. And so they didn't have the time to go do the ride-alongs and listen to call recordings. And so they weren't really sharpening the agent's skills to improve conversion. And this, like the difference between making, call it $500,000 in a month or $1 million in a month, is literally improving your lead to appointment ratio by like a couple percentage points and improving your face-to-face conversion by like 10 to 15%. So instead of you winning, call it 4 out of 10, you win 5 out of 10. Like by making these two little improvements on your team, you can double revenue. Like I've had it happen to my team, to other teams. Like you literally go from, for example, in 1 year, you'll go from 150 closings to 300 closings. You'll go from 500 grand a month in revenue to $1 million in like real commission revenue, not sales volume, like real commission dollars, by just improving those things. And so, there's been some tech come out lately thanks to AI, and we are using an app. And I invested in this company. I'm like so excited about it, and it's basically like a mystery shopper. So it digests all of the phone calls agents make. And it has a record button on the mobile app for agents. And when they're face to face with clients, it records the whole thing. And it's loaded up into the AI brain, and it sends out this like beautiful summary of everything that was spoken about, like everything you need to follow up on and like outstanding items you need to check on or whatever. And then it also tells you like, hey, here's what you could have done better to win that deal or to book that appointment. And so like that has been helping my team, like my agents, learn even faster. And then I don't have to go do the physical ride-alongs. And that takes a lot of time to go like drive around with your sales team. So you can go to the iOS store, Android. It's called RealSync, SYNCH, RealSync. And it synchronizes with your CRM. It synchronizes with your QuickBooks. It synchronizes with your phone system. And then it's got a record button on the mobile app for when you're face-to-face with people. And it pulls all that in together to help you understand how to really improve performance, to help your agents be more successful, and helps your agents understand like where they can improve. And so it increases conversion rates of salespeople really fast. So that would be my second big nugget.
Yeah, man, you're dropping them. Dare I ask, do you have a third?
The third nugget I've got is I don't feel like it's as sexy as the first two, but
the first two are good. They're hard acts to follow. That's for sure.
There's a lot of nuances in what I'm talking about. Like, for example, the lead side, the mystery shopping the agent using the AI app. It's like, okay, you go get these hot seller leads, right? Well, what do you say to them on the phone? What's your script? Like, what are you saying exactly on the phone? When you get the AI app that's like telling you, hey, you got stuck on price with the seller. Next time, try to lead them to their own conclusion. In a perfect world, you'd have a mentor, coach, whatever, telling you, well, not telling you, but they would be role playing with you to like help you practice so you overcome that objection. So my third biggest nugget, which is not like the sexiest, is like I had to eat a lot of humble pie to figure this out. Like I said, I was sleeping on my girlfriend's at the time, her red IKEA couch, and I ended up in that situation because I thought I was smart, and I just didn't have a lot of humility at the time. I was 23, 24, and not very humble. And so my third nugget is the shortcut to accelerating everything is go find somebody that is where you want to be, and like don't question, just copy paste. Like I don't know where I heard that the National Association of Realtors was started in 1908, over 100 years ago. And there's been a lot of people have a lot of success in real estate, whether it's the investment side or working with buyers, sellers, starting teams, brokerages. Like there's so many people that have walked this path over 100 years that have achieved, amazing things, made hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. And so like wherever it is you want to end up, my third nugget is, if you're laying in bed at night or during the day and you're like wondering, what should I be doing? Or like in what order, in what steps, like let that be a signal that you need to go find somebody that's where you want to be, that you can somehow, some way work under, whether if you got to pay them to be a coach, do it. If you got to sign up for whatever they got, do it. Like it's the single greatest shortcut to success is taking the guesswork out of what you should be doing each day when you wake up.
That is so true. And it is definitely a great third gold nugget too, because it is very true. And if you haven't found that yet, I mean, there is, I think there's a lot of gurus out there and stuff as well. So that you need to be a little bit careful, but paying to have a coach, like, I mean, if you're wanting to get fitter, you get a trainer. If you're wanting to, that kind of stuff, it just not only do they have the experience, they have like the knowledge to get you there. It's just also the accountability too. I mean, that can be really helpful. Is like, they're going to be invested in you and you don't want to disappoint them. You want to keep going and having a objective other person that you listen to, I think is also important. Like, I'm a hard-headed person and I don't listen to a lot of people. So like, it's important to find people that can get through this thick skull. It's a great, those were awesome, Chris. Thank you so much for those.
There are a bunch of gurus out there, and everybody's selling some program or course. So, I think the secret is like finding someone that's actually doing it at a high level and has been doing it for a long time. Like, if you've only been doing it a couple of years, dude, you shouldn't be creating some coaching program. I mean, like, I don't really think you have like deep level subject matter expertise, or you've reached that 10,000 hours, to mastery until you've been doing this for at least like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years minimum. Mm-hmm. So it's like you wouldn't hire a trainer that's like morbidly obese, right? You want to hire someone that's like super ripped, and you want to do whatever they tell you to do to follow in their footsteps, right? So like, if you want to be a successful investor, go find someone that's like crushed it as a in the investment world, or whatever it is you want to do. Like, go find them, and someone that's been at it for a while, not 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but like minimum 5, ideally 10. It just, it takes a lot of time to like, I remember as a 20, like part of the issue too, when you're like young, and this was my issue, and why I wasn't very humble, is like, I was so impatient. Like, I wanted to get rich so fast. And so like, I just failed a lot because I just, and it wasn't until I failed so much to the point of being basically homeless, where I was like, okay, this isn't working out for me. I need to go find somebody smarter than me to help me. And man, my first coach and mentor was like a game changer, and I've had one ever since for the last 15 years. Like, I'm always have a coach or mentor helping me.
Yeah, that's true. I love it. What about a fundamental book, a favorite book, one that you think everybody should read, or just one that you're currently really enjoying?
So there's a book that came out in February, like just recently, like a month and a half ago, written by a guy named Bill Gurley. And his book is called Running Down a Dream. And it's how to thrive in a career you actually love. And I've got 2 young kids, and so like, I'm always thinking like, how do I set my kids up for success? I also think about like people in my organization, like, how do I make sure I have people that are aligned in the company, that are on the right seat in the bus, and learn, and you don't want people in the company that are not happy, or they're doing something they hate and they're not miserable, or they're miserable.
Yeah.
Anyways, Bill Gurley is this like just super, super smart dude. And I felt like, I always thought, like, I have 2 girls, they're 6 and 9. And I always thought about writing a book for my kids to read if something ever happened to me. And part of the thing I wanted to write in the book would be like, here's all the things you need to go read in addition to this book.
Yeah.
And like, this is probably one of the first books I've read where I felt like, if there's like one book I give to my kids as like a core book to read, or, I mean, it's like, dude, I feel like it's a book I would write. Not exactly, but like, he gives you this great outline around like how to help go make sure you're following you're chasing down your dream. I mean, the book's called Running Down a Dream.
Yeah.
And anyways, man, it's been a really great book. It literally just came out. If you go look on YouTube. If nobody's ever heard of Bill Gurley, go look him up on YouTube. Like, man, he is an incredible investor, like crazy successful investor. I mean, we're talking about like, behind the scenes of companies like Uber and stuff, but like, that's not how it started off for him. Like he was a long ways away from that when he got started.
Yeah.
He talks about this in the intro of the book on the Myers-Briggs test. He's an INTJ, and
Okay.
I'd be willing to bet a lot of people that listen to your show are INTJ.
Sure.
On the Myers-Briggs test, because people that like the investment side are very different than agents that enjoy working with traditional buyers and sellers. So I would definitely go read "Running Down a Dream."
I love it. That's a new one. I mean, obviously, because it's also a new one to the world. Chris, this has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much. I'm sure we could talk for many more hours. You have a lot of experience and wealth of knowledge that thank you so much for sharing. If people want to follow you on social media, find out more about you, buy your book, what are some websites and places they can go?
So if I create a landing page for people that they want the book for free. It's a really long domain name because we just set it up to give it to people that I knew. I think the domain name is $1,000,000realestateteam.com. I mean, you can find it on Amazon. But I think you can get it free. I think the landing page is $1,000,000realestateteam.com. But best place to stay in touch with me is find me on Instagram, send me a DM on Instagram. And it's just, / Christopher Waters.
Okay. Chris, it's again, thank you so much for being on the show. This was a lot of fun. And I will hit you up next time I'm in Austin.
Cool. Good, man.
All right. Take care.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to The REI Agent.
If you enjoyed this episode, hit subscribe to catch new shows every week.
Visit reiagent.com for more content.
Until next time, keep building the life you want.
All content in the show is not investment advice or mental health therapy. It is intended for entertainment purposes only.